The Cal game's closing in fast, and we got a whole lot to talk about, so we're going to break it all down right here on Locked On Huskies.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To another edition of Locked On Huskies. I'm Rome Tomashoff. That right there, that's Lars Hanson. We write for Inside the Huskies of Fan Nation and Sports Illustrated. You can check out all our written work over at si.com/college/Washington. Thank you so much for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. Quick reminder to everybody that today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50+ infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Lars Hanson, we're going to just jump right into it here. Is Rome Odunze the best wide receiver in the country, and does he deserve to be the favorite right now for the Biletnikoff Award?
I mean, I certainly think he deserves to be the favorite for the Biletnikoff because it's not – the Biletnikoff isn't necessarily the guy that has the most touchdown catches, right? Much like the Heisman isn't the guy that has the most passing yards, the most passing touchdowns, or where, the highest singular stat doesn't necessarily matter. Rome is the best complete wide receiver in the country right now in terms of his ability to go up and get the tough catches. He can run every route in the route tree. He's second in the nation in receiving yards per game, second in receiving yards. I believe he's top 10 in catches. So he's right. The only thing he's not stacking up per se is touchdown receptions. He's got 2 this season, but that's also because you have to consider the context of the offense he's playing in and how he's also helping other guys on his team get touchdowns. Like Jack Westover had 3 against Michigan State. I think it's fair to say in any other type of scheme, those 3 could go to Rome. And also, by the way, to that point, this weekend Rome could go for 3 touchdowns as well. So I think this is a very fluid offense that allows multiple players to succeed. But from a purely talent and just as an overall complete receiver, I think there's no question Rome is the best receiver in the country at this point in time.
Right. No, I like that a lot. And the one thing that we do need to talk about is just how much he's improved. One thing that I know that you and I being able to be around this team every day and talk to these guys, for me personally, Rome is one of my favorite people to talk to because not only is he very honest, very candid about everything, but he also just says, yeah, I know I need to be better with this, or this is something that I'm really trying to work on. And one thing that he told us all spring and all fall was, I need to be better when, I need to be physical. I need to go up and win contested catches. And it's something that Jamarcus Shepard, the wide receivers coach, has told him very, very often, according to both of them. And it's something where I was texting with an NFL scout over the summer, and I love watching Rome's film from last year. And I was texting them and I was just like, well, what do you think? What do you think? Do you like him? Do you like what you're seeing? And the first thing he said to me was, man, Rome's a baller. And he was just like, yeah, the one thing that he needs to do is he needs to win at the catch point. He needs to be physical. And right away, we saw that this year. We saw it against Boise State with his very first touchdown of the year being a contested fade route that he needed to just go up and win. And then we look at that 55-yard bomb that he caught from Michael Penix that Penix threw out of his own end zone, where he just had a defensive back just draped all over him. That was basically pulling him to the ground as the ball was coming in. And it didn't matter because he's 6'3", 215 pounds at this point, and he looks the part of it too.
Yeah, and I think that the last measurable you listed is very key. He gained a lot of weight, but good muscle weight. He didn't bulk up and try almost look like DK Metcalf incarnate, because he doesn't need to be that big, right? He just needs to be able to handle those presses in the line of scrimmage and create that separation. And we're seeing that pay off with all of those. The ability to jump starts with having that mass, having the ability to muscle out a receiver in the air, because otherwise you're going to get called for offensive pass interference, and that catch that you make isn't exactly as impressive when you got to elbow the guy out of the way and almost tackle him to make that happen.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I really want to talk about that DK Metcalf comparison that you made, because you're right. He's not DK Metcalf, where DK is just one of the most rocked up human beings we've ever seen walk this earth. And and it's true, man. Watch that dude play football. But when you watch him play football, to just keep that segue going here, he doesn't do some of the things that Rome can do, where their 40 times are very similar. Kalen DeBoer told our buddy Christian Capel that Rome clocked in at a 4.34 40-yard dash over the summer. where DK ran a 4.33 at the combine. And that's something where if Rome also just kind of runs more routes and is more impressive when he runs route than DK is. DK, you see defensive backs kind of play off and just say, yeah, we know he can out-muscle us, but we're also really afraid of him just kind of running by us. Rome can do all those things, but Rome can also stop on a dime and change direction and just kind of go all over the place. And that's kind of, I think, what sets him apart from almost every other wide receiver in this class.
Exactly. I mean, I think one thing that always stands out to me about Rome, it always seems like his first catch of the game is a 10 to 15, usually maybe even a 12-yarder. They get to a first down, but it's always like a quick out route, like a quick, sideline. And it's not an easy, oh, hey, he's wide open over the middle because everybody's scheming him open. It's like, no, he's making the tough catch early, and then he's going to wrestle you later on when he goes down the field and just blows past your defenders and things like that, because he really can do it all. And then we've even seen him out of the backfield, go on reverses and things like that. So he's not just a guy that is a receiver. He's really an athlete. I think that is what makes Rome Odunze such a good receiver, is because he's a pure athlete, not necessarily just I'm going to be a possession receiver, or I'm going to get you the yardage, but I can't get you the separation in the end zone. He can do it all.
Right. And I think he's just such a smart kid too, where you can kind of you get the sense when you talk to him, and then you look at him on the field and you say, okay, I kind of see where what he's thinking here, what he's doing in all these different scenarios. And that's, again, what sets him apart and what I think is going to end up making him a first round pick come April, come the NFL draft, because you look at a lot of the other guys in this draft class where Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be a top 5 pick because the NFL is just absolutely in love with him. And I don't blame them. That dude is so talented. You look at his running mate over there, Emeka Egbuka, Xavier Worthy at Texas, the Malik Neighbors at LSU, and then the Florida State duo of Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. There are a whole lot of talented receivers in this draft class, but Rome just kind of, the thing that is so unique about him is he kind of possesses the best traits that all of them have, except Johnny Wilson, who's like 6'9", and even Rome is really, really tall. He's 6'3".
Nice, but yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. But I think also we've kind of seen over time, just because you're a tall receiver doesn't necessarily mean that makes you great, right? I mean, Randy Moss is maybe the exception to that, where 6'4", 6'5", the dude can just high point. We created Moss as a result of that, right? You just got Moss, but you just got put to Roman back. That's kind of the similar thing with Rome, where it's like, hey, I can't necessarily Moss you with my natural height. I mean, he is 6'3" to your point, but I am just going to abuse you. I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to conquer you. And I think that's what's kind of, symbolic about his name, right? He really is a conqueror. Like he can, I know I'm not going to repeat myself here by saying he can do it all, but there's just so many facets of his game. And I remember one thing that Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb both hit on a lot last year. They both said he's the most coachable player that they've ever had. And I think especially when it comes to the NFL, and, when we're talking about, do I want to spend $20 million on a rookie first-round wide receiver? He has to be coachable, and I think Rome is going to be so appealing. And we've seen many scouts. I think it was the Las Vegas Raiders talked to Jamarcus Shepard for like almost 45 minutes after a practice. There's a lot of teams that want to know about these receivers, and I think the more they find out and the more they see, they're going to be like, ooh, this is a factory coming out over here, almost like Ohio State, to your point earlier.
I like what you're saying there, because one of the most important things that is stressed every year at the NFL Combine is the interviews. That when they just sit you down and ask whatever weird questions it is that they do, and usually put you up on the board and just say, okay, what do you like here? What is it that you like to do? Rome in those interviews is just going to kill it, man. Yeah. Because he's just, I know it's something we said, but there are a few guys on the team that are just as candid as he is and are just such good interviews and just really respectful and really smart. Just you see it from the second that he steps on the field, everything it is that teams are going to like about him going forward.
And on top of that, it's authentic. It's not forced. Yes. It's not coach speak. It's not, there's obviously an element of coach speak to, all great players, because, when you're a great player, great coaches, they do the same. I mean, Bill Belichick, your boy, always is the master of coach speak. But there's truth in that, right? It's like, hey, when we're preparing at a high level, when we're doing things, when you hear all these buzzwords and things like that. But then Rome also can give you Eddie's my guy, when we were coming up and doing this and all these things, Rome is able to almost kind of be that Swiss Army knife, right? Where it's like, I'll give you the basic. I'm not going to hurt the team, right? I'm never going to say anything damaging about the team. And he was on that team in 2021 and he never had a bad quote. So right. I think, that was the perfect opportunity for a bad character guy to show true, and none of them did. To their point,
Absolutely.
to their credit.
So that's going to be a really great job interview for Rome, you might say, because we got to talk about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I think that, I know I harped on it the other day, but that kid who put that McDonald's application out for Michael Penix, I think he might end up needing LinkedIn Jobs because trash talking is not really going to be a great career for him. All you have to do is add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Lars Hanson, it's time to talk some recruiting. I know we're big recruiting guys. We've stressed it before on this show. There's an official visitor this weekend who is super talented. I had a friend of mine text me today and just say, oh, this Josh Lair kid's coming up this weekend. I just watched his film and oh man. So please take it away. You've spoken to him and his family recently over on Inside the Huskies. Check that out, please.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that, this has been a visit a long time in the making, because originally he was supposed to come up for the big weekend, the end of June, where all the other commits that are in the 2024 class basically made their decision effectively. But he wasn't able to, for a number of reasons, make that trip. But he didn't commit anywhere. He still kept it open, still decided, hey, you know what? I want to feel things out. And as he's cut his list down, the other schools on that list, who off the top of my head I don't necessarily remember, but we're talking about some SEC schools, we're talking about a couple of
Baylor and Texas seems to be the rest of the list right now.
I was going to say, depending on who you read and when what you decipher from that. But yeah, exactly. It's basically, does he want to stay home, or does he want to go, maybe a little bit away from home, try something new? Because yes, Texas is very appealing, right? And especially after their win against Bama, that kind of makes things a little bit harder. But Josh has been up to Washington before. He came up for an unofficial visit in April. So I think that there is a little bit of foundation built there. And that's one of the things that a lot of the commits have in common. They didn't just come up for the official in June. They didn't just come up for an official. This is a one-off, because it's almost like now that lays the foundation, right? If your first visit is your official visit, now you're kind of like, okay, now we're trying to still learn things and do whatever. He's been able to be around some of the commits already. He's been able to be around the coaches before. So the fact that they have gone through 3 different reschedules to make this visit happen, I think speaks to Washington. I mean, you don't do that if you aren't serious about that program. And so I think it's more a matter for his family to come up, see the game. And I think that's kind of, especially for Washington, where you're up in the Pacific Northwest, it's a 2-hour time difference from Texas, and there's a significant mileage gap there, right? Versus if you're playing at Baylor or down in Austin, your parents can come see you every weekend. Not that your parents can't see you up in Washington, right? But it's a little bit harder to make that trip. I think getting them up for a game visit will show the parents, hey, look, this is also what it's like and how easy it is to get up here when you want to come watch your kid play on Saturdays if he happens to play college football here. So I think it's the perfect opportunity. It's the perfect opponent, because it's going to be a defensive game. I think we'll be a little bit surprised by that. We'll talk about that more on Friday's show, where this is going to be a perfect game to where Josh is going to be like, okay, I can really do some damage here in the secondary. And I think when you look at the depth, yes, we talked about Vincent Holmes before and things like that, but Josh is a guy, especially you noted his film, he could be an instant impact guy, especially with the way Chuck Morrell likes to run the safeties.
Oh, absolutely. He flies the ball, man. That's the first thing. When you watch his film, you just, oh, wow. Oh, this dude is fast and he hits hard. And that's something where once Dom Hampton leaves, there really isn't another. I like Tristan Dunn a lot, kind of in that same role, but he's just not quite there yet. Where there's not that person who is just like, yeah, that's the guy who's going to be coming downhill, coming straight to the ball and just laying a huge hit on a guy. And that's one of the biggest things that I think that Josh Lair could kind of do right away. And then as he develops, I think he could also turn into a really great, just kind of over the top helper in any kind of coverage that Chuck Morrell wants to call.
Well, I think it's almost like he can become that ball hawker after, we naturally get some more understanding, because I think we've seen with this defense, it's easier to lay the lumber than it is to get a pick. So right. I think just because he can't do one or the other. I think he can actually do both, which will allow him to kind of get more and more opportunities and maybe unseat some of those guys that are above him. And also, when you look at his size, I mean, man, it's not Cam Chancellor reincarnated, but man, it's not that far off. And I know I'm not saying he's going to be Cam Chancellor, because also I know
we did run into him a couple weeks ago, and I just like he's one of those guys where you look at him up close, like, oh, you're way bigger than I ever thought you were, and I remember you being really, really big too.
Right, almost that DK Metcalf, like, yeah, that's a Yote human being right there.
Yeah,
like, the guy's built like, built out of granite sort of thing. But I think Josh also has the ability to get there, to get to that size and even add up some more weight. And I think that's one thing we've seen a lot with Rod McKeefer and his staff, strength and conditioning staff, where these guys get bigger, but it's all good way, right? We haven't seen any of these guys get too big. I don't think we haven't seen any of these guys play too small, right? There's a few guys that actually went down in weight, but it's helped them, right? And so I think, and we can name a number of players that fits, but I mean, the Rome Odunze, to go back to the last segment, perfect example. Cameron Fabiculon, he's not big, but he's long, tall, and rangy. He just needed to add a little more size, get a little more mass, so he can lay those hits. And he's also got Dom Hampton next to him, who kind of is that natural Joshua Lair thumper.
Right. And I kind of want to just kind of, let's say Josh Lair does commit to Washington, which I'm not going to say that they're the favorite right now, but it's very clear that from what's going on with some of the other schools that he's visited and how hard he in particular seems to have worked to want to come up here, I would say that they're very firmly in the mix for his services. Do you think that that would be the last guy that they take kind of in this defensive backs class?
In this defensive back, I was curious if you were going to say the entire class, because I do think there's a couple more spots that they will have.
There are more spots. We'll get there.
But yes, and then from a secondary perspective, you have Peyton Waters, you have
Elias Johnson.
Elijah Johnson. I was gonna say, I was like Elijah Jackson. I know it's not that, but Elias Johnson, yes, to your point, who already came up a couple of weekends ago for a visit. So they've gotten guys on, and also having him as a local guy there, he also could make the trip up. I don't know if he will, but again, you want Josh to be around as many guys as possible and things like that. Not necessarily to butter him up per se, but I mean, it never hurts when you're bringing a recruit all the way from Texas, and it's like, hey, who am I going to be playing with? Who are the guys in my class? Yes, he's had the unofficial visit, but
right.
You just want that, and especially for the family, right? Because I think one thing that a lot of players and recruits have mentioned, especially under Kalen DeBoer, it's a family. And I think that, and I know every coach probably says that, and hey, come join our family, right? Hashtag Brotherhood 23 or whatever. So many schools doing that. But at Washington, they don't do that necessarily as much, because it just is what it is. It's real.
Not an act.
Exactly. And it starts with Kalen, right? I mean, he is probably one of the more authentic guys you will ever meet as a coach, right? Honestly, not even as a coach, as a person, right? I mean,
oh, for sure.
Who he is on the record is who he is off the record. There isn't a difference there.
There aren't two Kalen DeBoers. There is one Kalen DeBoer. Lars is dying over there. He's fighting through a cold today. I was trying to hit the mute button as fast as I could not get there.
No, that's on me. But yeah, I was gonna say, just to finish that point, that I think once the family sees that family dynamic and kind of can trust. I mean, there's Javon Parker's mom actually told Kalen DeBoer no, jokingly, before they ended up saying yes. But I think they had the same sort of questions, right? Where it's, I don't know you guys, you're new. So again, the Joshua Lair and his family have known the coaches now, so they've built up a good relationship. And again, to our point earlier, rescheduling your visit twice to come up during the season on a Saturday in the late September, coming from Texas. You don't have, if you want to go to Texas, right? You want to go to Baylor, go to Baylor. The fact that Josh and his family are coming up here, I think, speaks a lot to this. Might be a closing visit more than anything else. I think it's Washington and Texas going into the visit.
So I agree, and just kind of to that point, you see it. He was scheduled to commit on September 24th, which as of right now is during his Washington official visit. Do I think he commits during the visit? No, but I really wouldn't be surprised if he pushes it back, like, I don't know, to that week after, and just has it at some point during that week. And all of a sudden, hey, yeah, Kalen DeBoer is tweeting those Huskies jumping in the locker room, because it feels like this one is a long time in the works.
Right, exactly. And we hit on it earlier where it's like, this isn't his first visit. I think it's kind of the last, right? Where it's like, hey, this is And I think actually, which is a good thing of why the coaching staff and the parents have not forced it, right? They didn't say, hey, we need to come up to this weekend or it's never again, right? Like, it's not at all. I think the fact that it's been so cordial, the fact that the reason why they had to reschedule the last visit was a family reason that, nobody would have seen coming, and, thoughts and prayers with his family and things like that. So the coaching staff being flexible, understanding, but also right on it, right? Not like, oh, okay, he's not coming up again. Do we really want this guy? Do we really want this guy? No, we do. So that's why they've handled it perfectly.
Absolutely. Now, got to take a minute here because it's time to talk about our friends over at FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, which are guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Now, real quickly, for everybody who might be on the app right now as you listen to this, take a second, check out that Husky line, because they are 21.5-point favorites right now against the California Golden Bears and Cal. So there are some weird things that happen sometimes. We'll kind of see how that plays out. But if you want to throw some money on that either way, don't think that would be the worst idea on your part.
Does lightning strike twice?
I didn't want to. I've seen some people on Twitter just get kind of mad at the social team because they use the Metallica like album cover with all the lightning in the background. I thought it was great that they did that. Please.
Did Ryan Grubb not make it clear when Udo plays Metallica, the game is over on Wednesday? Just want people to know that. Like the fact that Ryan Grubb said we're going to kill them all over an hour before kickoff against Michigan State, and then the final score is 41-7. That tells you all you need to know.
I agree. So with that being said, what is the biggest, we're going to get into way more of this on tomorrow's show. So all you everydayers out there, we know you're subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever. And if you're not, please make sure that you are so you won't miss any of this. What do you think is the biggest matchup that you want to see when the Cal Golden Bears come to town on Saturday?
Part of me, it's not necessarily one, like it's because everything in this game, when you look at the numbers, is going to come down to, can Cal run the ball effectively against Washington? Because if they can, it's over, and it's over in a hurry. As I told you before the show, Cal's quarterback Ben Finley is 10th in the conference, just over 100 yards per game passing. Cal has 3 running backs that have multiple touchdowns each to their credit, and Cal is probably one of the deepest running back rooms in the conference. And a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think that, nationally you would look at Washington's and maybe Oregon's and a few others, but Cal is right up there, right? You got Jaden Ott, you got Isaiah Freeze, you got a few others that are in there. If they can run the ball effectively, that'll allow their passing game to get going, or at least have the opportunity to balance it out and keep Washington's defense on the field. If Washington can get up like they did against Michigan State, 21-0, 14-0, 17-0 in the first quarter especially, this might get ugly in a hurry on Saturday.
Yep. So I like that that's where you went with this, because I was going to kind of take the other side here, where I couldn't decide. So I'm just going to say Washington's offense, because we all know what it is, right? It's the #1 offense in the country. They're averaging 614 yards of offense per game. So there's a whole lot going on there. And last year, this offense struggled against Cal. There's really no other way to put it. They put up I believe it was the season, 27 against Texas. So they put up 28 points against Cal. And they just really struggled to kind of get anything going. And it's something where they just weren't really taking what Cal was giving them, where Cal was saying, all right, it's going to be a light box. If you want to run the ball, fine. We're going to let you do that. But we're going to play 8 guys in coverage, and we dare you to pick us apart through the air. And I think that's what's going to happen again.
See, I think this is a coming out party for Dylan Johnson. At least in the first half, right? This is kind of where maybe Michael Penix plays to the end of the third quarter finally, because it's just crazy. It is crazy to say at this point after you played a Power 5 team last weekend. But I think, to that point, if Cal is going to give them the chance to run the rock, and it's 5-on-5 or 4-on-5 or 3-on-5 even on the front, Washington has to take that and make that count. Yes. I mean, I know. And here's the thing. I think we've seen the first 3 weeks of the season, Ryan Grubb really trying to run the rock. He's really trying to pound it early. We saw it with Sam Adams and Will Nixon against Tulsa and Boise State. Dylan Johnson a little bit against Boise State as well. But then against Michigan State, Dylan goes for 75 or 70 plus, right? And Tybo Rogers able to get his 70 and things like that. This is a game where I'm not necessarily saying Tybo is going to be that 70, but I think Dylan maybe gets to 110 or 90, and Will Nixon and somebody else combined for another 50 or 60. And Michael Penix still gets to 400 because that's just how good this offense can be. But I think it's going to start on the ground because Cal, to your point, is going to give him that light box to work with. And yes, Michael Penix is the best quarterback in the country. But having said that, rush 3, drop 8, just take the run. This isn't Mike Leach. Like
it's that.
You brought Dylan Johnson in for this assignment. This is one of the assignments of why you brought Dylan Johnson into this program. That's
something that we saw throughout the spring, or in the practices that we did see Dylan Johnson, and then again in the fall, whenever he was on the field, he was just so hard to bring down, and that's his thing. That's why he is here. I talked to Lee Marks about it today, and he said, yeah, it's because he does a little bit of everything. He catches the ball really well, but he's just such a physical guy that when he gets ahead of steam, he is so hard to tackle, and he can pick up 7, 8, 9 yards in a hurry. And he can drag dudes because he just really is that big and that physical. I remember, I feel like I've said it before on the show. One of the very first things that I noticed about him on the first day that he was suited up with the team, I was kind of like, oh, who is that person with the running backs? Because he's just so much bigger and stronger than everybody else that they have there.
Yeah, I remember talking to him back in February shortly after he made his decision, or maybe late January, early February, before he enrolled in practice. And he even admitted, he's like, look, I'm just a cherry on top. Like, they got Penix, they got all these dudes. I just need to be that guy that can do just enough to take the load off, do that. But really, it's almost like you're almost hiring like a hitman, right? We're like, hey, we need you in like these 5 games. These 5 games against USC, Oregon, Cal, Oregon State, Utah, where it really matters, where we need that second, third option. And what Ryan Grubb sold him on was being able to get him the ball as a pass catcher. So I think he can do, to your point, so many different things. He's got to be the key to this game on Saturday. I mean, yeah, again, when I say key to the game, key to opening up the gates, so then everybody else starts cooking, right? I'm not saying Dylan's going to run for like 210 and 5 touchdowns here. I'm not saying that, right? But there's a way that where he can kind of be the catalyst that opens the gates for everything else.
No, that's right, because that's what we saw was when Cal just really sat back and just said, okay, we dare you to pick us apart through these 8 guys in coverage. It didn't matter what UW lined up or what they were kind of throwing at him. And yeah, Michael Penix still had 350, 360 something yards like that through the air, but it just didn't look the same because they weren't putting the ball in the end zone. And especially in short yardage, they didn't really have that guy. Wayne Talapapa wasn't getting the job done. Cam Davis wasn't getting the job done. Richard Newton kind of came in late in the day and was, but they're just by the end of that, there was not a lot left for the best term that I can use here is there was not a lot of room left to operate for the Washington passing attack when they kind of got down into the red zone.
Right. And I think that now we've seen it. We saw it against Michigan State, how they use Jack Westover and how they use a number of receivers. I think there's a different kind of style. This offense, we've said it a bunch of times, is operating just at a different level in every facet. The offensive line is probably the weak link of this group, which is crazy to say. And you know what I mean when I say that, right? Where they're not the weakest link, right? But it's kind of like, hey, where is the biggest growth? It's probably running back or offensive line, and they kind of work hand in hand there. So I think the more that this offensive line is able to kind of run the rock and pound it and just set it up so that Michael Penix doesn't have to cook as much, that's where they're going to start getting those things in the red zone. Tom Fornelli, your guy, I believe had Washington as the number 1 or number 2 red zone offense in the country in terms of when you get into how often do you get in the red zone and how often do you score once you get in the red zone. They're over 50%, which is crazy to think,
that's
especially
wild.
where they were last year.
And I do want to say that the one thing I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. I don't think it's the offensive line that's the weak point here. Or I think that, if anything, it's the tight ends. And it's not a knock on guys like Jack Westover, Devin Cole, Josh Cuevas, Quentin Moore, whoever else. It's just more that they aren't really utilized nearly as much, and they're asked to block so much more of the time. It's kind of like there are certain plays where I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, there's a tight end on the field. Totally forgot about that, which is just the case with the NFL as well.
But to that point, that's kind of what I'm saying. If the run game, and we're splitting hairs, right? I'm not saying the offensive line is right. It's not like I'm saying the offensive line is weak. Because so if Scott Huff watching this, shout out to you. But I'm not saying the offensive line is weak. Right? They're not weak. Please don't make him rally me. But having said that, I think even Ryan Grubb would say that where can this offense take the biggest jump? It's in run blocking. It's not that it's poor, right? I mean, even Ryan Grubb said it was poor against Boise State. It got better against Tulsa, and last week was the best. But it's consistently carrying that because we know this offensive line can get even so much better than it already is. Their pass blocking is out of this world. It's just a matter of getting that run game to kind of establish itself a little bit more. That way you don't have to worry about the pass blocking as much because, again, that's not going to fall off, as I said a couple of days ago. That it's not going to be in spite of the pass block going down that the run game gets better. I'm just saying you have to bring up the run game just a little bit more, and I think we're going to start to see that, especially against Cal.
Lars, as always, appreciate you being here. We appreciate all the everydayers tuning in because, we're having a lot of fun on this show. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. As we said, when we do our full breakdown against Cal, we should have some bold predictions for you, as we always do. I've been Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. And, as always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe wherever you see this podcast, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. There are so many different places this podcast is on. We can't keep track of all of them anymore. But wherever you are watching or listening to this, make sure you subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and just leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any questions, and we will talk to you on Friday.